everybody, this is Craig with Bowler Performance Transmission. Today we're going to do a quick video on setting up an adjustable Tilton hydraulic release bearing. This is a bearing that we really like to use here. It's a good quality part. We've never had any troubles with this particular unit, so we typically tend to push guys into going with this route. Setting one up is actually not that difficult to do. It's going to be a little bit different procedure than if you had a constant contact bearing where there really isn't much height set up to it. So with this particular unit, the bearing itself, this part is universal to all transmissions, and then the attachment hardware is going to be specific to your transmission and your engine setup, so that way you can get enough height adjustment to get your setup properly. With this particular combination that we're working on today, this 5-speed is actually going into an aluminum bell housing behind a GM engine. And so with that particular combination, a lot of times we run out of space inside the bell housing to get enough height adjustment, and the bearing has to be back way back against the transmission. Nice thing is, Tilton makes this little bearing retainer adapter that we can replace the factory ceramic adapter with to get that extra little bit of space that we're going to need to come up with the height adjustment that we're looking for. So what we'll end up doing is, here in a minute, we'll go check out the car. They got the bell housing, the clutch, everything already on there. We'll take some measurements from that, and then we'll come over here and we'll measure the bearing and set it up onto the transmission. Now the trick thing is, since it's threaded, all we have to do is slide it on there, rotate it around, and then we're set. And then once we come in, we do our measurement, we just rotate the bearing to the height that we need. And then the little ear here is where we lock this down so that it can't move once it's up inside the car. Come in and measure the distance between the bell housing face where the transmission goes in and the distance between there and the edge of these clutch fingers on our diaphragm clutch. So the best thing to do is get you a nice straight edge like this. Take your digital calipers and you're going to come in, rest that edge against your straight edge and slide in until you touch the tip of the clutch fingers. And now what we're going to do is take that measurement from about 4 different locations around the face of this bell housing, just for some consistent repeatability, so that way we don't have any measurements that are really far off from one another. And then once we get that distance figured in, which I've already measured this one, we're at 2.677 inches of distance on this particular bell housing. We're going to take that measurement, add in our 125 thousandths air gap, and figure out what distance we got left over to set up the bearing on the transmission itself. Okay, so now that we've got our distance from the clutch fingers to the edge of the bell housing where the transmission is going to mount, we came up with 2.677 inches. So now, figuring in our 125 thousandths air gap between the bearing and the clutch fingers, we've got to adjust our bearing to get the distance that we need to make up the rest of that space inside of the bell housing. So what we're going to do then is we're going to, the bearing just threads right on, and you can adjust it by rotating it each direction and set the distance that way. So what we'll want to do is take our same straight edge that we used on the bell housing and our calipers and measure from the face of the bearing to the face of the transmission. See what kind of distance we've got. We're going to end up with about 2.54. So that's going to give us just right where we want to be to get the setting we want. So at that point, what we're going to have to do is clock this one way or the other so that we can actually secure the bearing in one of these 2 mounting holes. So since the hydraulic lines are going to actually come out on the driver's side of the transmission, what I'll do is I'll rotate it here and then we'll lock it in place from there. And then we're ready to set the transmission into the bell housing and bolt it down. Okay, now that we've got our distance set for our bearing adjustment, I've got the lockdown bolt in place so that the bearing can't rotate back and forth and lose its adjustment. Then from there, I've got it set up, like I said before, so that both of the hydraulic lines will come out the driver's side of the bell housing where our port is. And you'll notice that both of these lines are basically the same, and they actually run through the same passage on the bearing, so they're under the same amount of pressure. And what Tilton will send in the kit is a fitting for your bleeder screw on one line and then your connection to your master cylinder on the other line. And it doesn't matter which one you hook up to which, as long as one's capped off and one's hooked to the master cylinder. From there, we can fill the system, bleed the clutch out, and then you're ready to go.